Recently at EICMA, the new Streetfighter V2 was unveiled alongside the Panigale V2. Online at least, they got a similar reaction to the V4, which was launched about a month or so ago. Lots of people were wringing their hands and saying nope. I wasn't all that sure either, but for me it wasn't the drop in 30 horsepower or the new double-sided swing arm that were making the hairs stand up in the back of my neck. It was the overall look of the bike. I thought it looked slightly squished down, less gym bro than the original Street Fighter, which had caught my eye 3 years ago. But after doing something very sensible for a change and sitting back and looking and listening and then looking again, I've kind of done a 180. Many of the changes that Ducati have made were things that I'd mentioned needed addressing in my videos and on the Ducati questionnaire that I filled in back in July. Now, I'm not for a minute suggesting that I've been listened to, but I think that we have. Also, I think that the extreme diet and engine strategy more than likely came about so that Ducati could more easily compete in World Supersport. At the moment, the current Panigale is a big heavy bike that needs to be stripped back and then detuned to fit into the class, and that costs money. The new smaller engine will allow them to make a more nimble bike and to tune it up. Ducati haven't really had a proper sporty supersport style bike for years now. The V4 engine bikes are now their top tier. The poor V2 was sitting below that, an engine not quite in the top class anymore, and way too heavy and overpowered to be a true middleweight. It now looks less gym bro and more triathlete. In the questionnaire you were asked about any improvements that you'd like to see. For me, the main issue was the weight. You really notice the mass of this bike while braking hard. I hadn't realised just how heavy it was when I was running it in, but once that was done and I could push on a bit, that weight started to show. In my videos I've pointed out things like the heel guards having a rough finish which became marked with your boots. That's been addressed. The very flexible side stand looks to have been redesigned. No USB, sorted. Small display, sorted. Needs an underseat exhaust, sorted. The steering damper, which isn't the prettiest, has been moved from the front of the tank and relocated out of the way and below the headstock. Mirrors, a new design. These look much more adjustable at least, and maybe you won't just have to look at your elbows. If you plump for the S model, you'll no longer need a day and a ratchet strap to remove the pillion pegs. Fuel gauge, well, I've no idea, I can't find anything about that. So those are the improvements that I've spotted just from the video and the spec sheets. There's probably a lot more to be found. I'm still not sold on that new teal piece. I prefer the old one, and to me the headlights look a little fussy, but that may change when I get to see the bike close up. I do like this middle section with the colour coded plastics instead of black. It looks much more coherent. And the split tank design, similar to that on V4s, looks much better too. It makes the tank look less bulbous than it did, and of course it allows you to bling it up with some carbon if you like. Speaking of accessories, I configured a V2S with the minimum that I'd want to get by. Some things like Rizoma bar ends and my mirrors I could swap across. Now that's a lot of money. Ducati say they've made the base price cheaper, but this configuration has cost me more than my Street Fighter did back in 2022 with loads of extras. Granted, I didn't put an exhaust on it at that time, and if I did without, that would help, but I really would like to leave that on the list. 17 to 18,000 is crazy money for 120 brake Supersport naked. You could have your pick of pretty much every other brand out there and still come home with between 3 and 7k in your pocket. So you really need to want one of these. On my Ducati Monster test ride a few months back, I said that if they ever made the Monster with the headlights and the tailpiece of the Street Fighter, and with the Monster's engine and road manners, they'd be on to a winner. So on paper at least, they've made it. But I guess I won't know until I've had a test ride.